Okay, so today we're going to continue that blog site we were working on Wednesday. On Wednesday, we updated the logo. We worked on some of the about page. So we worked on a new page. Today we're going to focus on. I'm going to do some more changes on the logo as well, so you can like actually make your own logo. Obviously, the logo we use is just like another image from another website. Looks nice, but eventually you're going to want your actual own stuff. So that's actually going to be the first thing we do. And then we're going to work on rendering blog posts along different categories, which should be pretty quick. And then we're going to work on the about page a little bit more. At the bottom, there is a contact form. And so maybe this blog is like a branding blog website for you where you want to showcase your work, you want to advertise your professional services, then you're going to want people to be able to contact you. So we're going to plug that in today. Okay, so hopefully we can get through all that. So let's see. As always, make sure you have an account on Turbo 360. This is our deployment environment. That's where we're doing our hosting. If you don't have an account, sign up. You're going to need that. You're going to need Node.js running. You should already have that. If you don't, download it here. Download the LTS and install that. And last but not least, you're going to need the Turbo CLI. So open up your terminal. And if you don't have the Turbo CLI, type in sudo npm install -g turbo CLI. And again, Windows users do not need sudo. You can just do npm install -g turbo CLI and let that run. And when it's done, it takes about a minute. You type in turbo version to make sure you have the most up-to-date version, which as of today is this number right here. Make sure you have Node properly installed. You can do node-v to check your Node version. So I'm running 10.16. And make sure you have npm installed as well. And just to reiterate what these tools are, so Node is a JavaScript runtime. You can run, that's what we're using for our server environment. npm is the, well, who remembers npm? We talked about this a lot. So who remembers what npm stands for?
Node Project Manager.
Almost.
Oh.
You missed the P.
Package.
Node Package Manager, which does, what is its core responsibility? Yeah, that's it. That's it. Installs the dependencies, manages dependencies. And the Turbo CLI is a, well, first of all, who remembers what CLI stands for? Or good, and like generally, what is a CLI? In general, not the Turbo CLI in particular.
It's a way you can interact with files.
Not files, in this case?
Templates.
Sorry?
Is it templates?
No, it's for interfacing with the deployment architecture, the platform, in this case, Turbo. So when you want to deploy your projects to Turbo, you're going to use the CLI. But there are, many platform options. Obviously there's AWS and Google and like a dozen others, or at least Heroku, Netlify, whatever, and they all have their own CLIs.
Okay.
So you can interface with your code with whatever deployment environment. We're using Turbo because it's easy, it's fast, and it's free. All right, so that's what a CLI is. So let's get started. I have the code here from the end of Wednesday. So I'm going to just CD into that. Make sure you don't miss this. I'm going to CD into that. So I just CD'd into the code, the root directory. I'm going to open it in my Finder. I'm going to do a fresh install. So I'm going to remove the node modules. So I'm removing the dependencies, right? And I want to reinstall the dependencies. So how do I do that? Because the Node Package Manager manages dependencies, right? So we do npm install, and that's going to install the dependencies. How does it know where to find those dependencies? How does it know what to install? So it's not going to just install any random dependencies, right? It has to know what to install. So how does it know even what to install? That's right, package.json. So if I open up the code, oh, by the way, if you're on Windows, here's another way you can open up the code. You can just take the folder and just drag it onto Visual Studio. I think that'll work for literally everyone, so you can just do it that way. Okay. If you open the package.json, there is a entry called dependencies right here on line 15. And this set of entries from line 15 to line 47, so about 32 or so entries, these are all the dependencies. So it just goes through each one and installs each one, and it puts the dependency in the node modules. Okay, and that's how it works in a Node Express project. Okay, or just really technically just a node project, but we're using Express. So again, just to reiterate, this is a Node Express project. I just did a clean install. I can look at the build scripts. I'm sorry, just the scripts entry to see which one gives me like a local testing environment, and that's this one right here, serve. And so I can do npm run serve, and that will run the local testing environment. And so if I head over to localhost 3000, which is right here, by the way, this tells me where to go. I will see the site that I'm currently running. And this is where we left off on Wednesday, so you should be looking at the same thing. All right. So now one of the things we did on Wednesday was we installed this logo, which looks very nice, but again, it's not our logo, right? The question then becomes, well, what if we want our own stuff? So if you're a graphic designer or a designer of any sort already, you probably have your own tools and whatnot to create logos. But if not, I use a simple program called Canva. Canva.com. It's free. Just go ahead and sign up. I'm going to use this to create like a basic logo. Okay, so just go ahead and sign up on Canva right now. Rashid, when you're done signing up, can you just close that door? And this gives you a bunch of visual templates you can use just to create a simple like logos and stuff like that, which we're going to use. Okay, so when you get to this page on Canva, let me know. And don't go any further. And we're going to use this to create like a simple logo that looks pretty nice that we can then use on our site. I wish Canva was paying me for this, but they're not. But it's a good service, so I'm happy to pass it along. All right, so just let me know when you're done signing up, and we will start creating logos on Canva that we can use on our projects. Okay, so let's create a logo. And this just gives you like a million templates you can use just right out of the box. And the only caveat is we have to use one with a white background because our website has a white background. Okay, so I'm going to just, I don't know, I'll just pick, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I'm just looking for, oh, this one looks nice. All right, I'm going to use this one right here. Okay, and let's say,
how'd you get to it?
You just scroll down the side.
Yeah, you don't have to use the same one. I don't really care which one you use, but just make sure you use one with a white background. Right. Okay, and let's say I want to start a blog about, like, I don't know, my favorite basketball team, whatever, right? So, Dan's basketball ramblings. Okay, and then I can move this around. It's basically a visual editor. Trying to get this all in one line. It's like a drag and drop tool, right? So I have to make this smaller. I'm going to take the font size right here and make it smaller so I can get it all into one line. There we go, that fits. And then www.whatever.com. Okay. This is a Canva like concept, but these are basically like layers you would find in Photoshop. Right now they're grouped, so it makes it hard to move each one individually. So what I do is I ungroup it, and then I can move this guy up a few clicks to make it, to bunch it up a little bit nicer. And then that's going to be my logo, and that's it. Right, so let me know when you're ready with your logo, and then we will use this on our site. Hey, we got some more people. All right, so once you have something that you're pretty happy with, you want to download it, and download it as a PNG. Download it as a PNG. Okay, and then
Give me that option. I just see download. Should I click the suggested button? Or just, I don't see PNGs. I'm just wondering when it downloads, is it going to come out as a PNG?
Probably. I'm not sure what the default is.
Okay.
So here's the image I just created. So now this looks fine for now, but the problem is it's too big. You see, like it's not like all we need is right here. So we're gonna remove all that. So let me show you the easiest way to do that. I'm gonna expand this. I'm gonna expand this all the way. And if you're on Windows, I'm not exactly sure how this is gonna work for you. Actually, I'm not gonna expand it. I'm gonna leave it like this. I'm gonna take a screenshot of just a certain portion. And on Mac, that's Command-Shift-4. Okay, so Command-Shift-4. You see how my cursor became like the crosshairs? I can then highlight only the part that I need like that. You see what I'm doing? And that will be like for my purposes, that'll be my logo. Okay. And I think that goes on your desktop automatically. Right? That's the default location. So here it is on my desktop. This is really all I need. Okay? So I'm going to rename that logo. Just logo. And that's going to be our logo instead of the Chloe Davis, right? I'm going to, yeah, it's already on my desktop. Okay, so let's go back to Turbo now. And let's start using our own logo. So I'm going back to the actual Turbo site. Go to my account. Click on Sites. Sites. And then click on Manage under your website, the blog tutorial site, the one that we're working on. Manage. So one of the things that Turbo, so it's an entire deployment system environment, and included in that is like a file uploader. Like you can upload files for your website. Okay, so we want to use that. It's under file storage. You see this? So every site that you create like gets a file storage environment with it. Okay, so this is like one of the benefits of Turbo. Like it just gives you that automatically. So if I click on file storage, I can just click upload file. And then click the logo. Are you not with me? You guys not with me?
I didn't create a site, so I'm at my account.
Yeah, so if you go to my account, click on Sites, and then click on Manage for the current file storage, right? And then file storage. And you can upload images here and whatnot. So I'm going to click on Upload File, and then just click the logo that you created. And then I'll throw it up to the file storage system, and here it is.
What was the site that you utilized to look for image?
Oh, we didn't look for an image. This time we created one. It's called Canva, C-A-N-V-A. It's free. Just go ahead and sign up. We'll use it. Not too much, but every now and then we'll use it. So here's the image we just uploaded. So tell me when you guys have that. So if you click on the actual file name, if you just click on it, it'll show you your image on the file system. Like that should be the image you just created. Okay, so now the URL is what matters. So if you want to copy that. And now let's go back to our code and put that in our website. So we go back to our code. I'm going to turn off the server, so Control-C. Okay. And then who remembers where that main image is stored in the code? very good. Global JSON. And then I believe it's image logo nav, line 4 on my screen.
Yes.
So
They updated it.
that entry right there, we want to remove that, right? All this, that long string, we want to remove that
And put in-
and replace it with our image address instead. And technically I didn't have to turn off the dev server, but it doesn't matter. So now I'm restarting the server. And when I reload the site, what should I see on top?
The image that's.
The new logo. So again, you don't want to rush this testing process, right? You always want to be sure you know what to expect, right? So now if I go back to the home page, now I see my image.
Close my terminal.
Okay, obviously there are more professional ways to go about this whole image stuff, but that could be like its own course entirely. So I'm just going through like a quick and dirty, like, this is a quick, easy way to get something that doesn't look terrible up there, so that you can show it to other people. But yeah, if you already have some design background, like, you probably have better ways to do all this, and that's fine. So, but this is just a quick, like, hey, I just need something up there right away.
Okay, so I accidentally clicked my terminal. Do I need to go through, I gotta go through all the commands again?
Which commands?
Do I need to do the, sudo npm? I have to do all of that. I accidentally closed it.
No, you don't have to do it again. Just open the terminal and
Just open the terminal,
and just
okay.
get back to where.
Just the
Yeah,
npm run serve.
yeah, that's
Okay.
it. Okay. Who got theirs working?
I did not.
All right. We want, this is an important part of the process. I want everyone to get this one working. So. Okay, so I have my logo showing up here. Keep in mind, I'm still on localhost, so I didn't deploy this. Actually, let me just rerun the server. So if I run on localhost, I should see my logo, which I just saw a second ago. So I want to make sure it works on the actual staging environment. So I'm going to turn off the server and throw it up on the staging environment by doing turbo deploy. Basically, I'm going to publish the website, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do turbo deploy. Devon, this is not going to work for you.
Yeah.
So just to keep everything on local.
No problem.
And then I want to make sure I see the same thing on the live hosting environment, right? Otherwise, like, what's the point? Because ultimately, that's where it's supposed to go, right? It's good if localhost works, but if it's not the same on the live hosting environment, the actual staging environment, it's like, well, then what's the point, right? So think of localhost as practice and think of the live environment as the game, right? So if it's not working in the game, then what's the point? So here is the deployment URL, the staging URL. If I go back to that, you'll see it actually didn't work.
Yeah.
So something's wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
And so you may recall when we were updating pages on Wednesday, or it might have been Monday, I can't remember. You have to update the page individually as well. So we updated one page, or a page configuration file. Which one was it?
About.
No, that's the page. I'm sorry. A JSON file, a page configuration file. Where did you change the image of the logo? Like, where did you literally paste in the new image? In what file?
Where did we paste the image?
Mhm.
The logo.
Sorry?
You mean the logo?
The logo, global
Oh,
JSON.
yeah, global JSON.
So the global JSON is a configuration file we changed locally, but we have to change it on the live environment as well. So we did that a few times, I think on Wednesday. It's turbo page global. Don't forget to do that. And that will send your changes from your local to your global configuration. Right. And then so if I reload, now I see on my staging environment the new image.
Okay.
Okay, that's very easy to forget. Just keep that in mind. Sometimes whenever I make a change on global, like I push it to the staging environment right away. It's a good habit to maintain. Good. So now I'm seeing my new image on the staging environment. Like I published the changes. Okay, makes sense. And who has this working? Okay, so Tina, I'm going to reload your site. So Tina, this is your site. I'm going to reload that. Now this is what we get. Even without the white background, it looks fine. So I would screen. Actually, no, it looks fine. I don't know. I'm being too nitpicky. Let's say on let's say on Tina's, because I don't know if you remember earlier, I was saying like this, the big square is going to be a problem. So one feature that we can use in the image storage system on Turbo is you can resize it very easily. So the way, if I copy your image address and I paste it, I see the image you're using, right? So you see where it says S360 right here? That actually is a number that means something. That tells the image to render no larger than 360. Like that's the maximum pixel size it can go.
Okay.
So if I just change that to 260, I can make it a little bit smaller, right? So for Tina's in particular, 260. Let's try 240. First of all, what I want to do is see how that looks, how that would look in real life. So what I can do is I can right-click on this. Okay, this is a very important tool. And then we can inspect it. And it shows you the HTML in Chrome. And I think Safari is the same. I can literally change these URLs. So I can take this, I can double-click on that. That's what I just did. I double-clicked. I can just change this number right now, 240. And it'll show me how it looks like in real life. So that's a 240 pixel maximum. Okay, maybe that's still too big. Maybe I'll try 220. You see I'm just changing the numbers in line right there. And then I just remove it, and that's a little bit smaller. Okay. And so for Tina's, this might be like a better image dimension. So we are testing the image sizes on the header, the header of the site. So what file should we go to actually make these changes for real? Close. It's close. If you look at the global.json, it's a little tricky. Those sizes are not there, right? So it's actually a pretty reasonable guess, but in this case it's incorrect. But what file ultimately renders this HTML?
CSS.
No, there's an actual file that we've been changing.
Is it the public file?
Well, don't guess.
Okay.
Okay, don't guess. Like, break it down step by step. What are we looking at in the code right here? This top section. It has a name. We've referred to it a few times. Who remembers what the name is? The header. Very good. Where is the header stored in the code?
In the body of the, well,
No, in the actual code. In like, what's the name of the file where we will find the header?
Views in the header mustache.
The header mustache file. It's actually not directly in the views. It's in another folder.
Header mustache. I'm looking at the numbers. In the head.
So we're in the header.
But where is the file stored?
Header. in mustache? Oh,
Is it stored in packaging or just the overall?
Don't guess. It's in the code, right? It's actually in the source code. So just find it and tell me where it is.
Oh, is it the image class, image dash logo? I'm on line 5.
Tina, you're overcomplicating things. I'm just asking where the header. You're looking too close, right? The header.mustache file is in what folder? That's really all I'm asking right now.
Oh,
Partials, thank you. Right. So in the partials directory, we have the header.mustache,
yeah.
right? And that's where this code is,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
And so now the question is, if we're in the right
Because I was looking at line
partial, right? Now the question is, what line should we be looking at? So you're like one question ahead. You know?
Oh, okay.
So like, I'm asking, like, where's the file?
I knew it was in mustache. You were looking at line 5.
Yeah,
Correct.
I was at line 5. That's what I was
And
looking
so on line 5, we see the global reference to the
Right.
logo, and then here
the
is the
number
resizing,
360.
right? So that's the number we've been manipulating to like resize the image. And for your site, it should be 220
220.
because you have a bigger image. It's a little bit more, hard to squeeze in there. And if you look closely, you'll see another reference to the image logo nav right here on line 11. So you want to make the same change. And this is only for your site because you're using a different logo, right? We don't all want to do this.
Okay.
Right? So now this becomes a matter of like how you want your site to look, right? And these are the important things of creating your own site. So I want you in particular to make the change, save it, and then throw it up on your staging environment so we can make sure it works.
All right.
And then once we confirm that, the next thing we're going to do is, well, I have 2 more things I want to do today. These are categories of blog posts. So we'll set up a page for that so that you can like filter your blog posts by certain category. Right, I'll go back to mine. So on mine, this is a quote unquote basketball blog, right? So I'll have one for like NBA, one for college and stuff like that, right? And then like when I click on one, it should show the blog posts only for those categories. So that'll be the next thing we do. And then to finish off, we're going to go back to the About page that we did earlier on Wednesday. And now let's plug in this contact form for people who want to reach out to us if you're running some sort of small business. Okay? So those are the next things we want to do. But before we get to that, I just want to make sure Tina's adjustments are showing up. And so that people can understand kind of how the image hosting and all that stuff works. Okay? That's a feature of Turbo, by the way, that S360. That's not something that's built into all websites. So you can use that to resize your images and whatnot without, not all websites work that way. So some of the things I'm showing you are unique to Turbo to make it easier for web development. But I would say about 90% of the stuff I'm showing you is like general Node Express web development. And then the other 10% is like, these are just tools that are already in place to make your life easier. Like, for example, the file uploading system. That's a Turbo feature. To show you how to do it like at the lowest level, like actual file uploads from like AWS and stuff like that. That's a whole course unto itself. Like, that'll take weeks. I just built in a quick feature that people can use right away. Is it up? Okay, so if I reload your site, oh, I don't see it. Oh, maybe it is the same.
It's smaller.
Yeah, it's
It was
smaller.
bigger.
Right. It was. Yeah.
Much bigger
Okay. I
than
changed it real quick. Yeah. Yeah. It is the same. Good. Okay. Great. And that looks better. So now you know how to input your own logos. Good. All right. Okay. So let's plug in these pages. Or actually, they're already plugged in. Let's go through how it works. So let's open up. Just make sure I'm recording this. Okay. I'm going to close all those out. I'm going to run the dev server, npm run serve. And then go back to localhost. Okay, and then we have these categories. I'm running a quote unquote basketball blog. Let's say obviously, I don't want health and fashion and travel. I'm going to want NBA and college, and then that's going to be it. I'm not going to get too crazy with this. So this is going to need to be adjusted. So again, going back to what we were saying earlier, what part of the code is this in?
What is in the global JSON page?
Yeah, it's actually in two parts, right? The global.json and what HTML file?
The partial.
Which one?
The should be header mustache.
Header mustache, right? So let's look at that first, the header.mustache. And we have our logos over here, roughly, through line 12, handles the logos. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see on line 22, or my line 22, the home header link, right? It might not be a perfect lineup with your lines, but it's going to be pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's line 22. It says home, and that's pretty obviously that's this one right here, right? And then we have all these other header links showing up in these mustache templating renders. Let's just sort of scroll past that, and then down at the bottom you see the about page, right? The about link, right? So if I go back, you'll see the about link here. And so we kind of glossed over these, but these are the categories: health, fashion, travel, whatever, right? And the mustache renderings are where those are determined. This is a little hard to read, but it's not hard to understand. So what's going on here is pretty easy to understand, but what the actual mustache templating is kind of hard to read. For now, just to keep things a little bit simpler, I'm going to just remove the mustache logic. So all the mustache templating, we're going to remove it, and we're just going to go back down to home and about. So everyone do this with me.
So that's everything, all the global header things.
Yeah, just get rid of that. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're just going to put in our own links.
So all the global heading.
Yeah. So basically, yours should look just like mine when you're done, when it's all said and done. So mine is going to have just the home and the about, and that's it. It's a very, very simple block, right? So if I reload on local, I just have the home and the about. But in my case, I want to put in two more. I want to put in NBA and college because those are the basketball stuff I follow, right? So I'm just going to copy the about, and I'm just going to paste it after the home and just put in an entry for NBA, and it's going to say /NBA, the href, the anchor tag. And then I'm going to do another one for college or NCAA. I think that'll be like more consistent. And for me, that's going to be my blog. Okay. Obviously, you can put in your own stuff, but this is how I'm going to organize my blog. Okay, and I'm going to reload, and now I have my two sort of categories ready to go. Okay, so all I'm doing is swapping out some HTML, pretty simple stuff. And remember, we're using the partial, right? So why do we use partials again? Who remembers?
Because it holds a bunch of code in one.
So what's the benefit? That's correct. So what's the benefit of that? What benefit does that give us?
Transfers the information all the way to.
Correct. So if I go to the About page, what do I see? The same menu options. I didn't have to make 10 changes. I can just do it in one spot, and it goes through all the other pages. That's correct. Okay, so I have my two categories. The important thing is right here, the href. Those are where those links go. So I have two new destinations. I have look at the lower left corner. You see localhost 3000/NBA. And then if I hover over this, localhost 3000/NCAA. Right? Those are the two links I just pointed to. You guys with me?
Mm-hmm.
And those are called paths. Remember that? Paths? So we basically just pointed to two new paths that don't exist because we just put them in right now. Right? So in other words, we just gave ourselves a little bit of homework. Like we have to create two new paths, or however many you put in your own project. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I got to go back to my route and insert two new paths. What are they called?
NBA.
Right. So I'm going to go back to my code. I'm going to turn off the server. Control C. The main path file so far, I think it's only one, is page.js. Right? Here on line 6, that's my home path, my base path. Line 7, I have one for post, which we haven't really used, so we could really technically just ignore that. And then line 40, we have this post : slug. We use this a lot, I think, on Monday. I can't remember. Monday or Wednesday. And this one we're using a lot. Who remembers what this one is for? What does this path do?
Oh, was the slug after the information after to even describe it.
That's what the slug is, and that's fine. That's correct. But what I'm asking is, what does this path end up eventually showing? Is probably the best way to phrase that question. Well, what does this path show when someone goes to it?
It shows the information that's listed. So the slug shows.
You guys are overcomplicating this.
Does it just show the information in the browser?
It's a little bit too simple now. We went too far back. So think of our website. Think of our website.
Mm-hmm.
Right, this is the home path. Right. If I go to this path, so /post/ a bunch of other stuff.
It'll show where you are.
So it'll be /work at Mother.
And then what would I see?
You will see the work
It'll-
at Mother.
yeah. It'll see wherever you are. So if you're in the about, it'll show the about. If you're in NCAA, it'll show that.
That's correct, but I'm asking specifically. This one will show the blog post. That's it. It just shows the blog post.
Specifically.
Yeah.
No, I think it was,
I'm thinking
the way she.
yeah.
Got to keep it simple. Keep it simple. When I go to this path, what am I looking at?
You're just looking at a blog post?
Good.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh,
That's it.
okay, all right.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, we were all
Keep it simple.
way past
Yeah.
that.
So you got to kind of get back to what I'm doing here is I'm reestablishing like the context we need to remember to do the work we're about to do. Okay, this is called context switching. This is a very hard thing to do just in life in general, but like in programming, context switching, you have to do it a lot, and which means you have to like have a way of doing it. So here's what I mean. For the past half hour or so, we were just doing a bunch of HTML. We were updating HTML, creating images, stuff like that. That's front-end coding. We were doing front-end coding, and like that's what it is. We are now switching over to the back end, which means we have to like reset our brain to think in the back end. And that's called context switching. Another example of context switching is like, let's say you're reading a book for class or whatever. You're reading a book. And you have 2 exams tomorrow. You've got your history exam, and you've got your physics exam. Two very different things. So like, okay, you're studying for your history exam, you're done with that. It's probably good to take a little bit of a break before you get into your physics stuff, because those are two very different things. So you need to like mentally kind of reset your brain. Does that make sense? And that's context switching. Okay, and in programming that happens all the time. That's what we're doing here. So here you got to go back to thinking like, okay, now we're in the back end. We have to add two new paths to handle these requests. Okay, so or however many new ones you made. So I'm gonna go down here. You see, we already have one for the about page, and that's going to be this one right here. It's already set up. We already worked on it. So let's create another one all the way down here. It's going to be a get handler, right? Because almost all browser requests are get requests. In here, it takes two parameters. The first one is the path. So what's the first one I should make?
Home.
No, that's already set. Right. The home path is all the way up here. That's done. So what are the two paths I need to create?
It would be the NBA.
And
CW.
Right.
But
So-
I guess it depends on which one you want to go first.
yeah, so which one do you want to do first?
NBA.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, right? So what do I type?
NBA.
Almost.
Oh,
Slash
slash.
NBA.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Scroll Robert.
Thank you. Good catch. All right, so now we're setting up our NBA path. And then don't forget the comma. And then the second argument is always a function. And inside the function takes at least two arguments. Who knows what they are?
Request and
And
response.
response. And those are exactly what they sound like. This is the request object, this is the response object, and we're going to send the response back in the response object. This object right here, res, response, sometimes people type in resp, whatever. That's what the object we use to deliver the response. Okay? So now before we get too deep into it, let's discuss what this particular path is supposed to do. So going back to the actual site, when I click on this, what is it? What should I see?
The NBA site.
Well, what's on the NBA site? What do you think is supposed to show up?
I mean, you don't have any material for that yet.
Mm-hmm.
It would be whatever is there.
But it would be, yeah.
Posts, right? Any blog posts that focus on what,
NBA.
right? As opposed to,
What is in there now?
well, what are the two categories I'm going to write about?
Yeah, and NCAA.
Right, college and NBA. So when I click on NBA, I should see blog posts that only focus on what? NBA, right? And all the college stuff I'm not going to see. That should happen over here. Okay, and that you want to make sure you understand what we're about to do. So before we do anything, it's always a good idea just to send back a dummy response. This is the NBA page. Just to make sure even that works, right? That's always a good idea, right? So I'm just sending back a dummy response for now. And I'm going to run the server. And when I click on NBA, I'm not going to do it yet because we always want to establish what am I supposed to see. So right now, literally right now, when I click on NBA, what should I see? Not nothing.
You should say this is NBA.
This is the NBA page. Almost nothing, right? And if I don't see that, didn't work, okay? If I saw nothing, something broke down, right? This is why you want to very clearly establish, like, here's what I'm supposed to see. If I don't see exactly that, something broke down. And again, you want to mentally discipline yourself in the sense of, like, before you start running these tests, like, slow down. What am I supposed to see? Okay, a lot of people kind of skip that part and they get lost in the weeds, okay? So is this success or failure? Success, right? So now we can move on and start building in some actual logic. So okay, so we have a bunch of blog posts. I'm going to go through line by line. So you may recall in the controllers, that is the object which handles requests to our database. So, and the controllers inside manages our liaison to, in this case, blog posts, but it would be really anything in the database. Right now, we only have one item that we care about, and that is blog posts. So what we have to do is posts, grab the controller for post. And this part I don't expect you to understand. As we do more and more tutorials, I'll explain like more and more. Like every time we do another set, I'll explain a little bit more and more. Okay, kind of like what we're doing right now. Like every time I do a little bit more and more. So here, I'm grabbing the post controller, which is the blog post controller. And some people might call this manager, whatever, it's all the same. And then I'm going to get the blog posts. That's called a fetch. I'm going to fetch the blog posts, right? That's going to return a set of blog posts, so it's called an array. So the way you get the return statement is you do then, and then inside the parentheses is the results, the array of blog posts. So you do posts, and like that's the return value of the get. Okay, and then you pass in a function. And we'll deal with this later. I'm just going to comment this out. But this is where we actually do the logic. That's where the important stuff happens. Because we want to grab the blog posts, and then we want to send them back to the browser. But every now and then something might go wrong. Like for example, the database might drop or something like that. That sort of thing happens every now and then. So whenever something goes wrong, we have what's called a catch block. Okay, and the catch block is kind of like a just in case something goes wrong, do this. Okay, so you do .catch parentheses, and that inside that logic is where we say if anything goes wrong, do this instead. Okay, and a catch block gives you an error object, and then you run a function. The error object hopefully gives you some indication as to what goes wrong. Usually it does, but sometimes it's just like, I don't know what happened. You're just out of luck. But sometimes, or more often than not, it'll give you some indication as to what went wrong. And that indication is typically is inside of what's called the message key of the error. So we do res.send. So here we're sending back a response, and we say, oops, something went wrong. And then we can just send back the message key. Okay? Oh, error. I'm sorry. Error, not error. Error, like that. Okay, so here we're getting a little bit more into detail about how this whole thing is organized. We're grabbing the controller for the post, right? Because we want a blog post, right? And in this particular project, there's only one type of controller. There's only a post, because that's all we're managing. This controller is our liaison to the database, which is conventionally how it's organized. Here, we're telling the controller to get the blog posts. That's called a fetch. Fetch. And when it gets the blog posts, it gives them to you right here in this then block. That's the success block. Okay, here this piece of these 3 lines of code is what's supposed to happen. Okay. But just in case anything goes wrong, we have what's called a catch block right here. And this will only run if something goes wrong. This code shouldn't run. We hope it never runs. Because if it does run, what happened? Something went wrong. That's how you want to think of it. Okay? So right now, more importantly, we didn't do anything in the success block, the most important piece. Okay? So we didn't really successfully plug in this path because we're not doing anything, right? So this is an array, right? And for now, I'm going to grab the array and the number of results. So I'm going to call it num posts. And this right here, this return object is an array. And to grab the number of elements in the array, we use a function called length. It's really just a property called length.
Why is it an array? Sorry.
Because, so we have a blog here, right? And we might have like 10 blog posts. We might have like 1,000. And when you have like a bunch of stuff, it's usually returned in an array.
Okay.
And the word array is really just a list.
Yeah.
So it's just a list of blog posts. So here, I'm going to say found num posts, blog posts. And that's it. So that's going to be our quote-unquote success output. Okay? So now technically this is a fully functional path now. Like this could be our quote-unquote website. It wouldn't be a very good one, but we could like use that. So if I run the dev server, okay, and I reload the home page, and I click on this, NBA/NBA, who can guess what I'm going to see?
What you just typed in the found blog post.
Well, how many?
4.
4. Because right now, how many blog posts are in the database? 4. Got it. So this is a successful output, right? So good. So far, so good. That means what we plugged in here works. So you see how I'm like slowly building it up to make sure every step of the piece works. So obviously we don't care about this. So we can now get rid of this and continue building out the logic with confidence that at least this part now works. Okay, that's how you kind of want to build things up. Okay, so one thing you don't want to do is like write in all the code and then test it. That's a bad habit, right? You want to write a little bit, go back and test it, write a little bit more, go back and test it, etc., etc., etc. So with that in mind, who got this working? Was anyone following or just watching?
Just my time. I gotta take my call.
Okay. Well, if you weren't following, that's fine. If you were following, let me know if you got it working. So, okay, then I'll just keep moving. That's fine. So we have 4 blog posts in the database, right? And it found all 4. And that's good. That means this fetch request is working. However, we don't really want all 4. How many do we want? Or, I'm sorry, not how many. Which ones do we want?
Just NBA.
Right, so we need to apply what's called a filter to the request. Like we need to be more specific with our requests, right? How many people are in this room? 6, right? But what if the question is like how many women are in this room? Right? It's not 6, it's 3. Like that's essentially what's going on here, right? So we want to apply a filter which goes right here inside the GET request. And that filter is filtering against what property? Who remembers? These right here are referring to what property on the blog post?
The href, the link.
No. if you look at the models and the post, it's full of properties. Well, it has, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 properties. These are all properties, what's called attributes, properties, kind of the same thing. Which property are we referring to? And these ones that are commented out, that's kind of sloppy on my part. They just shouldn't be there. These are all the attributes. You see, image, title, category, text, category, right? That's the filter we care about. That's called an attribute or a property, same thing. So we want to filter all the blog posts against a certain category, right? So what we do is we go back here, and in the fetch, we insert a JSON object, and we add a category filter. We do category, and then it has to be NBA. And that way we can ensure that we're only getting posts with the category NBA, as opposed to like college or anything else. So now when I reload that path, when I reload it, what should I see this time?
NBA.
Literally, what should I see?
You still see the number 4.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because even though you filtered it with the MBA, you're still pulling it from that particular tab, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing has changed. That's the only thing that you added.
Oh, and something changed. We added a category filter, right?
Yeah.
So what does this filter do? It'll fetch blog posts for the NBA. Well, how many of those blog posts do I have? None. So what should I see?
0.
Exactly what should I see?
Found blog post.
Found
0
blog posts. Got to be that specific.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay? So if we don't see that, we failed. That's how this process goes, right? So we go back here. Try it again. We got it, right? Okay, because we didn't write any NBA blog post. I mean, I didn't write any blog post, right? Make sense? So success or failure?
Success.
Okay, so we have the right result set now. So now we can start focusing on actually make it show something pretty. Now we can start focusing on that. Does that make sense? So we focused on getting the correct data, which we pretty much did. We've confirmed it. And now let's focus on actually showing it in like a nice looking way. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just reload the same template, the home template, but this time it'll only show the blog post that I give it. Okay, I'm going to just reuse the home template. Okay, because this looks fine. This is a list of blog posts. That's all we're trying to do anyway, right? So far, so good. So I can now do away with that. I have to grab the data object, and you'll see that I'm doing that right here on line 63. Okay, or line 41. Or if I go all the way back to the home one, it's line 7. They're all just doing the same thing. So I'm going to do const data equals rec.config. This can also be rec.context. Same thing. They're the same thing. I should point out this is a Turbo thing, not a Express thing. In Turbo, every request is provided a context key, and that context key is where all the global stuff and the page configurations, that's where it's all bundled in. Okay? So that's a convenience thing for Turbo. Okay, so you know how we're updating global, and we update the global data object? That data ends up in the context value. Okay, that information eventually ends up in context. Okay? But the data object is a Node Express thing. Okay. So no, the reason I grab the context is because I don't want to lose the global object. Because the global is important. It goes to every page, so we want to keep that. So what I'm going to do for now is just render the home page. And that's it. And pass in the data object. Okay. So how do I do that? So again, I want to render the home page. That's step 1. And step 2 is pass in the data object.
Post control.
RES. Why is that? Why RES?
Would it be on requests?
Well, I want to respond with the home page.
Okay.
So how do I respond?
With RES?
Right, correct. That's why we use the RES, because it's a response. So what do I do with that next?
Dot send,
Why is it dot send?
because you're sending the response
But in this time, we want to send back what?
To the home.
to the homepage.
Right. So how do we do that?
The backslash, you need to put that in there.
Mm-mm.
Maybe still dot send as a,
Mm-mm. How do we send back templates? If you have to look at the code, look at the code. That's fine. I'm not asking for memory. You can look up your code. It's more important. The more important thing is knowing what we're looking for. So how do we send back the home template?
Would it be the top line? The router dot get?
Mm-mm. No. We want to render the home page. So one key question you should be asking yourself right now is where is that already happening? And just reuse that logic. So if we want to render the home page, that's got to be happening somewhere else in the code already. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a home page. You can just find where that's happening and just reuse that logic.
Is it further up in the code where you're utilizing?
So here I am all the way up on the top of the code.
Mhm.
Can you guess where I'm rendering the home page?
Yes, it'll restat render
What line number?
line 13.
Line 13. What am I doing?
You're rendering the home page.
It's exactly what I'm asking you to do, right?
Yeah.
So this right here is doing what I'm asking you to do. So what can you do with that? Copy that.
and paste it.
Paste it down there. Exactly. That's how you kind of figure out what goes where. Okay? So it's a very important skill, by the way. You want to try and reuse as much code as you can. So basically, I'm asking you questions that you can sort of find in the code. Okay? I wouldn't try and pull answers out of you that I don't expect you to know. Right? Like all this controller stuff, I just explained it to you, right? Because you didn't know it. I wouldn't ask you to guess. But if I am asking you questions, that means you can find it in the code. So everyone should be thinking like, all right, where in the code can I find this? That's the way you want to think of it, okay? So we're going to render the home page. We pass in the data. The server, I think, is still running. Yeah, it's still running. So when I reload the NBA path, what should I see?
still zero post.
No posts, right? Because there are no NBA posts. That hasn't changed. But now what should I see? Like what should I literally see?
The
Link
home
back.
page,
The home page, and then what else?
the post.
But you just said there are zero
No,
posts.
no, not for the NBA. You should see the home page and what's on the home page.
Should we see all this stuff? Work at a modern office. Some people don't like to add images. Should we see all this stuff?
You
I
should
would
if you're
assume
rendering.
so if it's it's on the home page.
No, we're not going to the home page. We're going to the NBA page.
Or are we
Oh,
rendering?
no,
it's
then
just
no, you
gonna
won't
say-
see it.
So what is all we will see?
We're just gonna see.
You'll see the
basketball round,
zero,
and then NBA.
and then home.
right? And then the home, the header.
Yeah.
So when I click on this,
Just that.
success or failure? Is that what we're supposed to see?
Yes,
Why?
because there's no post.
Good. No posts for the NBA.
Yes,
For
no
the
post for the
NBA.
NBA.
Correct. Good. So now this path is successfully connected. Now we have our posts here. We still need to pass it to the data object. So if I go to the top where we're doing that on the home page, that's happening right here on line 12, right? We got to take the posts from the database and insert it into the template. And that's what's happening on line 12 and 13 technically. So we got to do the same thing right here. Right? Otherwise, why do we even make the request? Right? It wouldn't serve any purpose. But it's still no posts because we didn't write any blog posts about the NBA. So if I go here and I reload, I still see nothing. Is that what we're supposed to see? Correct.
Yes.
Now, the only way to fix that, if you consider that broken, is to do what?
Create
Create a
NBA.
Very good. So now we got to create a post about the NBA to make sure that this actually works. So I'm going to do that right now. This part you can follow along, by the way, because it's not on the code. So I'm going to turn off the server. I'm going to head back to Turbo. I'm going to go to the management page of the site. All right, so that's this right here. And manage. And then click on the configuration link right here. Okay? Everyone can do this part with me right now. Like, it's not code oriented. Like, we're not doing any code for the next 5 minutes. Okay? And you're going to see the site that you published. And on the left-hand side, you'll see an option called CMS. That's where you can manage your database objects. In our case, blog posts. You with me? So here, CMS stands for Content Management System. So here, if I click on collection of cozy, the first one, whatever, right? You should see one of our blog posts on the site. And here, in my case, I have 3. You might have more or less, but this is what I have. And you see how the category is health? Right? I just want to change that to NBA. And then I'm going to scroll to the bottom and apply the changes because I need to save it. And now I have at least one post about the NBA. Well, quote unquote, obviously it's not for real. Okay? So I have 3 blog posts on the staging environment, and one of them is about the NBA. All right? So now I can test it. I can go back to my terminal. And here's something important to remember. We made a change to our data on the staging environment, the quote-unquote the live environment. And that's not synced up with our local environment. So you know how when we make a change to a page, we got to do like turbo page global to send it up, right? Now we're going the opposite direction. We got to take data from the staging environment and pull it down. So we got to reset our blog posts locally to sync up with what's on the staging environment. Okay, so we do, literally it's called reset. We do npm run reset, except spell it right. So what I just did was I cleared my local database. I just wiped it out. Okay, and what's going to happen is when I query the controller, it'll see that like the local database is totally wiped out, and it'll sync up with your staging environment. it'll like resync with your staging data. That's how it works. Okay, so if I do npm run serve, okay, and I head back to localhost 3000, back to the home page. Right now, my local database is empty. The website will notice that, and it'll sync up with the staging environment. And that's what just happened. Okay, but look at that. You see it? Right. And that's what just took place. Okay? So it's this blog post is collection of cozy rooms interior design. So when I click on this now, what should I see?
Well, the collection of cozy.
Correct. Anything else?
No.
Just that one. There it is. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. I have a little bit more I want to do, but I'm going to call it a wrap because we're going long. But before I do, I'm going to push this up to my staging environment. So I want to do that right now. So I'm going to turn off the server. So while this is deploying. So again, every kind of workshop and series I do, I'm going to push the envelope a little bit more. It'll be like 60% stuff we've already done, 30 to 40% like a little bit new. A lot of this is new, right? But you guys haven't seen this before. And so it's confusing. I'm sure you didn't grasp all of it, that's fine. But the idea is, we're going to do it again, and things will get easier. Like, so for example, now, opening up the code base, removing the node modules, and npm installing, hopefully that's easy now. I hope, right? And even deploying your sites now, it should be pretty easy, right? So the more we just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, the more it'll just sort of sink in and get easier and easier. So this is like the hard part. We did some new stuff today here. But we'll do it again next time. And then again, and again, and then that'll become easy. And then we can move on to more topics. Okay? So this should be done deploying. It is. So we copy and paste that to the browser. So now I see the new categories. Very good. I have my 3 blog posts. One of them is for MBA. So if I click on the MBA one, I see that. And this is on the staging environment. So this is currently on the internet. So it's quote unquote a real site. We still have our logo. Just make sure I can still read it, which I can. It's now a little bit more unique to what I want to write about. Okay. Also, what I think I'm going to do is on what's today? Today's Saturday. So our next workshop is Monday. But we're getting a consistent group of people pretty much every time. So rather than just do the new sequence that I was going to start on Monday, I want to finish this one. Okay, because there was more here I want to do. It'll probably take about another hour or so. So I want to wrap that up, and then we'll just move on to the new one, unless we get a totally new group on Monday, which isn't going to happen. So, but if it does, we can play that one by ear. Okay, so I do want to make sure we get through the last bit on Monday, which is simply this right here. I want to make sure when people read your blog post and like, oh, I want to work with this person, this is going to work. Okay, that'll be the agenda on on Monday. Alrighty. Okay, that's it for the video.